the protein amounts?
Oh, sorry.
When
One
you're
more time.
choosing your bars, do you look at the protein amount or the fat amount in those bars? Like, especially if it's like a Lara bar that isn't specific for sports, like in choosing a bar, do you also look at that amount?
I will sometimes, yeah, for sure. So typically I'm just looking at the carbohydrate content, and if I'm fully honest, if I intend to do it for cycling. But I'm also a huge nerd, so when I'm looking at other things that I eat during the week, I look at the proteins and the fats and stuff like that. But typically for cycling, I'm looking for those to be fairly low if it's on the bike nutrition, because again, it's about slowing things down and all the rest. So I don't need a lot of that. Now, if I'm doing big endurance rides, that's a little bit different, right? Because I intend on going like an easy effort, but all day. Then I might even just make like a peanut butter jam sandwich just to mix things up a little bit. And I'm probably not as meticulous about my carbohydrate intake per hour. I'm still following a nutrition plan. I'll still do 20 minutes and 10, and I'll still consume quite a bit of food each hour, but I'm not too concerned with the things that I eat as much, because it's not like I'm climbing mountains and I need this like explosive energy and glycogen and glucose and things like that. I don't know if that properly answered your question, but
Well, I suppose I'm curious as to what's low for you. Like, is there a guide as something that we should be aware of for like protein amounts to make sure that we're not choosing like a bar with too much protein?
you might be the first person who's ever asked me that. So no, not in particular, but let's have a look. Like, what's the protein content on Larabar? I think it's pretty low. 4 grams for this guy. Another 4 grams for the apple. Sometimes different flavors have different carbohydrate intakes. So when I'm looking at muesli bars like this, I'll pick the one that has the most carbohydrates, grams of carbohydrates in it. So this one here has got 2 grams of carbohydrates in it. Oh, sorry, 2 grams of protein and 19 of carbohydrates. So I would usually just use this on a day where I'm not like riding super hard, just like something to mix it up. So I'm not always having the same food. That's another good thing to talk about. And I think Maria was kind of getting at this a little bit, is like real foods are sometimes nicer to eat, right? So I'd like to have at least one thing with me that I'm looking forward to eating. And actually, the guy who runs Born in North Van taught me this. And he's this German guy. And he's like, you always want to have something that you're looking forward to eat, because you never remember to eat when you're going hard. But if you have one thing that's a cake, you just love it. You eat it all the time. And I was just like, oh, that's great. Like, and it works every time, because it just gets your brain thinking about that favorite thing. And if you're thinking about it, you're just going to be more likely to eat all your other food as well. So I kind of save that for the middle of the ride, and maybe one closer to the end where I'm feeling like really drained. And I like Joji bars. Joji bars are great. Now they're kind of like big. Their packaging is huge, and I think they're a lot higher in protein, but they're just delicious. So I want to have like 1 or 2 of those handy when I'm doing like a special day for sure. So there is ways of integrating other bits and pieces. Maria, have you made any of the rice cakes on the?
I had, yeah, I was just thinking about that. So in the book they have like their like the carbs per serving and all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking if I'm gonna make anything from it, I'll probably lean towards more of like the rice cakes and things like that, because and from that they're going to be easier to digest because it's just mush.
Yeah, exactly. They're super high in carb content, and you can change the flavors of that. So they often, like in those little square packages, they'll cut the rice cake in half and put a jam filling in, and they'll do like one that's blueberry, one that's strawberry. A lot of the pros like Nutella, which is actually really high in fat. But again, if it's the favorite food, I don't mind having that one thing that's high in fat, as long as it's like the only thing in my package, if it's something delicious and making me think. So that'll be like a reward at the end of the climb, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
could you just
go ahead.
Say the ones, the Born bars that are not cardboard?
Cranberry cocoa flavor, the vanilla flapjack,
okay,
and the lemon lime. So the lemon lime one is actually like very sweet, which is funny because it's got the same amount of carbohydrates and sugars in them as the other ones. The vanilla flapjack is just like a nice vanilla-y flavor, and the cranberry coconut just tastes like a really nice bar. So it'd be like the equivalent of a Nature Valley granola bar. So I'm like, oh, that actually doesn't taste like race food. That actually tastes like food. So I like that one. There's a caramel one. Like caramel in any other flavor is it's a home run normally. Like salted caramel, anything, excellent. But for some reason, their caramel one is just like, oh, it's so bad. It just dries out your mouth. And Michael told me that too. And I was like, oh, I want to try it. They also have a mint gel. Mint? Like, I don't want to be feeling like I'm brushing my teeth when I'm going up a mountain. It's disgusting.
It's mint lime.
Yeah, mint lime.
It's gross.
Okay, so one last thing to talk about with on the bike nutrition is caffeine. Okay, so caffeine does a couple different things. It can make you feel like, oh, when you're on the bike, it can give you like a boost of energy because it just makes you alert. But it's pros and cons. It keeps calcium in the muscle for longer, and calcium is responsible for the strength of contractions. So it can make more forceful contractions. Now that's not free money to your muscles, right? It's going to cost you down the line. But if you're on Cypress and you're starting to struggle, it can be good to have a little caffeine boost before you do that. So you kind of save these for like the final climb, or when you really need it, you have a little caffeine boost. You don't want to have it all the time though. There is a limit to how much you can have. And if you're sensitive to cramping, caffeine can bring on those crampings faster and more intensely. So you got to be careful of that. So it took me a while to acclimatize to having caffeine on my bike because I used to be sensitive to cramping, but you can get used to it, right? So, okay. So that's nutrition pretty much covered aside from any specific questions you guys have. So we talked about before the bike, on the bike, hourly ratios, hydration. If it's really hot, like it has been, you're going to get through one of these per hour, okay? How many of you take water as well as drink mix? Okay, Elizabeth. So you just have to be careful about your hourly intake, right? You can't just increase the concentration of one bottle. So you're probably going to end up diluting. So I would probably figure it out and try to do like every 10 minutes, have one of the drink mix, have one of this. So at least per hour, you're getting the same amount of carbohydrates and electrolytes per hour. You're not waiting until you go through an entire drink mix before you go to water. Alternate between the two so that the ratio every hour is equal. Okay, so that's a useful one. And then just keep nice practical tabs of it. So if you're just using the same bottle, you're going to go through a third of this every 30 minutes. Okay, so on the 30-minute marker, you should be like down here. By the hour, you should be past halfway. If you're not past halfway on the hour, Kat, is this something you're good at? No?
No, it's all right. Ed is just water squirting.
She's hydrating. Okay, awesome. Good on you, Edie. 10 mils of that per hour, you're good to go. Yeah, just make sure that on the hour that you check that you've been through one bottle. You can make up lost time, but you want to be careful because you don't want to make yourself get that gastric distress, okay? Again, when you're climbing, that's the hardest time to eat. It's going to take longer to get through your body. So you want to stick to gels and things like that when the effort goes up. And when you finish the climb, I would probably bring one of your nutrition timing a little bit forward. So let's say it's only 15 minutes before you're supposed to take the next piece. Well, you're going to be descending, so it's going to be hard to eat. So I'd have this just a little bit ahead of time and have a gel as soon as you finish your climb so that you're getting quick carbohydrates in there, and then you descend and you recover. Okay. All right. How do we manage energy for the day? Okay. How many of you do use power on your bikes? How many of you have got power meters? Okay, 1, 2, anyone else? Okay. Corrine, are you there? Do you use power, Corrine?
Hey, no, I don't.
Okay. I know, Nicole, you've got. So we got an even split. So it's easy for me to talk about power first, and then I'll talk about what to do when you're not using power. So if you got a power meter, I'm assuming that you know approximately what your FTP number is. Okay. On a Triple Crown, you do not want to see that number at all day. So when you hit Seymour, do not do your FTP. You might do 75 to 90% of your FTP. And I would be very conservative on your first climb. So the classic Triple Crown is Seymour first, Grouse second, Cypress third. Seymour is the most challenging. So keeping that number down is actually very tough, especially when it gets steep. But you do your best. You got to do your best. Kareen, your notes about food the night before, I've got a video of that. We did that just before you jumped on. So I'll create a link for that and you can check that out this week. Maybe not tonight because I want to get to sleep soon. But I'll put that up there and you can have access to it anytime. Okay, so managing. So FTP, we've got that number, 75 to 90%, no more than that. And I do the first one at your most conservative number. So I take 70 to 80% of FTP and do that on Seymour. In between your climbs, that's when you guys want to ride together. Hey, Ash, how's it going? I'm talking about peanut butter sandwiches. That guy never stops eating. Anyway, so in between your climbs, that's when you guys want to do your pace lines and be social, make sure that you're not pulling too hard on the front, get a proper draft, save as much energy as you can, right? So don't rush to the next climb. Keep it steady, right? You don't have to be slow, but use each other to help you out if you're in groups. If you're on your own, ride it super chill, super chill to the base of grouse. When you get to grouse, same thing. 80% of FTP is good getting up there. There is a part on grouse where it's so steep that the numbers are going to be what they're going to be. You're probably going to go into FTP range or more, but if you can help it, you try, okay? Once you get to Cypress, all bets are off. You do whatever you can. So if you're still feeling good and 90% of FTP is on the table, go for it. You have my blessing. Okay, but that's the one where you're most likely to crack, right? So that's really important why you need to just be a little bit conservative on the first two, and then you empty the tank on Cypress. Okay, so what if you don't have a power meter? What are the effort levels? Okay, remember in Queen of the Mountain, we're using those scales of 1 to 10. Okay, so whatever you climb Spanish Banks at, you're not going to be climbing at that ratio. So you got to back that off a little bit. So we're looking at 6 to 7 out of 10 ratio. So you should be able to hold a conversation while you're climbing. That's the test, or at least talk in a 5-word sentence without struggling to get through those words. Okay, if you're gasping for breath while you're talking to the person next to you, you're going too hard, right? So that's an easy test for you. You should feel a small lactate buildup, so a light burn in your legs, but nothing severe, okay? Something where you're like, okay, I can feel this is work happening here, but I could take this all the way to the top and there's still going to be something left in the tank. You don't want to get to the top of the Seymour and be like, wow, I really put a good time in there, right? I can feel the burn in my legs. That's going to cost you big time. You're going to be taking lots of breaks after that, okay? And then managing grouse is the same as we talked about before. It's going to be that 6 and 7 out of 10 right up until the Capilano Dam. The Capilano Dam is where it starts to get pretty severe, and it's the steepest of the two. So from memory, Seymour, grouse, even when you're using those ratios, you get to that part, you actually feel like, damn, that wasn't too bad. It's all good. You get to Cypress, you start the first 5 minutes, you're like, that wasn't too bad. You might get to the first lookout and then it starts to all unravel, right? And then you're just hanging on there. So be as conservative as you can. And then at that point, you should be okay. Okay. I know most of you guys are thinking, what the hell am I getting myself into now? It's awesome. I am confident that all of you will accomplish a Triple Crown on your first go. Okay. I know not all of you are targeting that right now. Some of you are only doing the double. But I guarantee you this weekend, provided you guys leave nice and early when it's cool, you follow a good nutrition strategy, you take lots of fluids, all of you can get through this. All of you, I promise you. Okay?
I did it with no training.
Yeah.
On a massive gear range.
It's not fun, but it's possible.
I had Tyler, so and he said slow. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So it can be done, right? But my goal is to help you do it well. Right? I want you all to finish like, hey, I achieved that Vancouver milestone that puts me in like I'm an animal class, right? Anyone who's done the Triple Crown, you're an animal. Okay, it puts you into another category of cyclists around here. It's a real milestone, and all of you guys are going to be able to achieve that. Any other questions? I know there's a lot going on in the comments. Let's have a look at the chat. Okay, so what is your opinion on cliff blocks? I love them. Okay, cliff blocks are great. You'll see I have all these little quirks. I'll start giving you my hot tips. So first thing I do before I leave the house, I chop the tops off of all my bars. Don't do your gels for obvious reason. Nobody likes sticky pockets, okay? So chop the tops off of that. That just means when I take it out, it's ready to go. I don't have to fumble with packaging. I don't have to take 2 hands off the handlebars. 1 hand is off. And when I'm racing, I'll actually break my bars in half before I leave the house. So I've already got my 20-minute ratios broken down, okay? I like quick food. I like to get my hands in and out quickly back on the handlebars. Cliff blocks are great, but it's a long packaging. So I literally cut them in half, and there's usually, I think cliff blocks are 6 and goo blocks are 8. So either way, there's 4 on one side and 4 on the other, or 3 on one side and 3 on the other. They actually have some of the highest carbohydrate ratios of any other foods out there. 1 strip of cliff blocks is 40 grams of carbohydrates. So when I chop it in 2, I know each one has got 20 grams of carbohydrates. So that's why they're super convenient. They're easy to carry. It's a high payload. And if I'm broken up like that, I can just put the whole strip in my mouth, pull out all 3. And I know that I've got, I know it sounds gross, all 3, 1 shot. It's easy to chew. Come on. And I know I've got my 20 grams in for the 20 minutes already. So then I just need a little top up after that, right? I'm a little gross when it comes to race food because I'm racing. I don't care how I look. I just care how I finish. Yeah, so thumbs up for cliff blocks. They're great. They don't have any other nutritional value to them except for food coloring and carbohydrates, but they're awesome and convenient. Food the night before. Yeah, so we chatted about that. We will link up that video. Basically, you just want to keep it low in fiber, high in carbohydrates. So potatoes, mashed potatoes, even better with the skins off, again, getting the fiber low. White rice, things like that. It's great. Oh, I love seeing Tyler with his shirt off. Hey, Stud Muffin, how's it going? Say hi to Tyler for us. He's getting a shout out. Any other questions?
So I'm probably not going to be doing this until like September.
Oh,
so would you suggest like doing like Cyprus and grouse and then doing Cyprus and Seymour, or just go for it?
For sure. I mean, just go for it. But in the meantime, it's always good to know what you're tackling, right? But you're probably not going to ride it the same way when you do the Triple Crown. So if you go out and you do Seymour, you're probably going to ride it pretty hard the first time. You're going to be like, okay, well, let's see what we're dealing with, right? How hard can I ride it and do it once? Where are all the steep parts on the hill? What do the corners feel like? What does it feel like to descend, right? And then I like to keep a little note. So because I use Training Peaks, I can make comments on there, and I'll just say how the climb was that day. Like, how hot was that? Did I bring the right clothing? How hydrated was I? How easy was it to eat? Just little notes like that, so I can come back to those for the event day, especially if I'm using that as a gauge, right? The more information you have, the better the day is going to go, right? Yeah. So yeah, feel free to test them out. I think that's not a bad idea if you're waiting to do your Triple Crown later. Yep. Anyone else? Anyone want to share some of their own tips, like big days or event tips that have worked for you, or maybe even just tell us how you've been preparing for it, or fun stuff that you've done up until this point?
The Seymour, I think the bug spray was kind of needed when I did mine because it was really bad. But I think considering the weather, I think you guys will be just fine this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That was my tip.
Yeah.
Seymour is a bug.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah, Seymour's not fun. So you've already done the Triple Crown once, right, Lynn? I think we were chatting over email.
Yeah, it was like I ended up doing it on my own. So like obviously my pace was, it was kind of hard to push myself, but I'm just glad it's over. So I finished it under 6 hours.
Awesome. Did we cover anything tonight that would have been useful for you on the day that maybe we can highlight for everyone?
You know, so I wish I would have gotten more information on food because I was just relying on goo gels like the entire ride. So I ended up taking like 12, 14 of them. And I think I definitely needed more carbohydrate because like by the time I went to Cyprus, I was definitely struggling to finish the ride.
Yeah.
So
So I did include a link for tonight. So to a blog that I wrote previously for preparing for races and events. The strategy is just the same, right? There's nothing particularly special about the Triple Crown that wouldn't serve you if you're doing a Whistler Fondo or a big 200-kilometer ride. It's the same ratios. Eat every 20, drink every 10. Prepare one of these for every hour and a half. Try to stick to 60 grams of carbohydrates or more if you can tolerate it. Those things are all the same for sure. So there's a blog there for you guys to fall back on if you need it. And the link to a little discount if you decide to go with some Born products. Yeah. All right, team. Shall we wrap up there? I've got time for one more question.
it's not a question, but for me, I actually set the alarm on my phone because I'm terrible at eating. So I had it every, not 20 minutes, every 25 minutes. This thing will go off so that's when I will know when to eat kind of thing. So
that's a good idea. Yeah. Personally, I make sure that when I'm doing a ride of that nature, that whatever page I have set up on my head unit, it has my elapsed time. So from the time I left my door and I started my workout, so it has a rolling counter on it, right? And if I get a little behind, that's okay. You can always catch up, but at least then you know every 10 minutes it rolls over, 20 minutes, you've got an account there to look at all the time. You won't be like, oh shit, where are we for time? It's right there on your clock while you're doing your ride. Or set an alarm. That's even more useful. So that's some next level stuff, Lynn. Good
I was
stuff.
alone. I had to do it.
Yeah,
But thanks,
fantastic.
Paul.
My
This was
pleasure.
really informative. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, team, let's
Thank
leave it
you.
there. My pleasure.
Thank
We'll
you.
load those up. I'll put them up on the YouTubes and send that out to you guys by email. So
I also took some notes just in a Google Doc, so I can share that if I'm gonna share it in the email thing.
fantastic.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Maria. And thank you guys for attending.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you
Good
on
luck for your-
Saturday.
Good luck for your Triple Crown. Send me lots of stories, all right?
Woo.
It'd be great to hear from you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.